It is 6:32. Is there a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm still logging in, Mary, so I'm an aye.
Okay.
Working on that right now.
That's unanimous.
Great, now that the meeting's open, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Great. We are now moving on to public input number 1. If anybody's here for public input, you can state your name and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. With any comments or questions, you can raise your hand in the chat box. Mr. Fisher.
Yeah, let's see what we got here. Hold on one second, please.
Sure.
I do not see any hands.
Seeing no hands, we will move on to section 5 of tonight's meeting, the superintendent's report. Mr. Nichols.
Thanks, Brian. I want to cover a few things, and as has been the case with since the start of the pandemic, some of this has changed since I wrote the initial report. So I'll do my best to update the board and the community on the status. First off, let me start with some good news. The COVID numbers have remained very, very low. The 7-day average in Suffolk County is 0.5%. Which is the lowest it's been for some time, really since last summer, I believe, spring. So we're in really good shape. One of the things that has happened within the last couple of days is there was a pretty disciplined rollout from the governor's office regarding masks. So I'll go over it in chronological order. On Friday the 4th, the New York State Commissioner of Health, Howard Zucker, released a memorandum saying that he was contacting Rochelle Walensky, the director of the CDC. And in that document, he basically stated that he was trying to align the protocols with regard to masks in schools with what was on the record for summer camps. And as a result of that, a lot of school districts on Long Island thought that the mask mandate had been changed and that come Monday the 7th, masks would no longer be required. That was in fact not the case, because in the letter from Zucker to the CDC, he basically said, we are going to wait until we hear from you on June 7th, which was Monday. So all weekend long, there was consternation about what was going to be the deal today in school. So then on Sunday the 6th, the New York State Commissioner of Education released a memorandum because it had to be done because everybody didn't know what was the deal for Monday. And in that, and I'll quote, he said, schools should continue to operate under their existing procedures until further notice. No changes have been made or will be made by the executive staff until after Monday, June 7th, to afford the CDC an opportunity to respond to the letter. The letter that's being referenced is the letter that the New York State Commissioner of Health sent to the CDC. So then fast forward to today, Governor Cuomo in a press conference and it's since been posted to the website, has stated that he spoke to the CDC, and the CDC is not comfortable relaxing the mask mandate inside of schools. So for the remainder of the school year, unless we hear otherwise, at which point as a community we can discuss which course to take. But as of this morning, Cuomo said that for the remainder of the school year, the mask mandate indoors will remain in place, but that outdoors masks were no longer required. And obviously, not obviously, there are some qualifiers with regard to that statement. Certain types of events, large scale events like graduation, there are exceptions that I won't go into here because we could be talking about it for probably 20 minutes or so. And there's a fair chance it's going to change between now and June 25th. So big picture, what it all means is that masks will be required as per the governor for the remainder of the school year indoors, and outdoors, they are not required. Now, the significance of that for the Sag Harbor schools is not all that great because we have not been requiring masks outdoors for some time now. So that announcement really doesn't fundamentally change our current practices. So that's pretty much where we're at with regard to the whole commotion caused by Friday's announcement and the subsequent emails that have gone out. Any questions?
Board members, any questions for Mr. Nichols?
Hey, Jeff, it's Yorgo. Sorry, I was late in joining in. So you got clarification about it, right? That basically we still have to follow the rules for inside, but not for the outside, right?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, hearing no other questions, Mr. Nichols, please proceed to 5.2.
So the next item I want to cover is also COVID related, and that's a change in the social distancing requirement in our schools from 6 feet to 3 feet. So going back to a document, an interim guidance document released on April 9th of this past year, April 9, 2021, that document laid out the circumstances under which schools could reduce social distancing from 6 to 3 feet. And it was much easier for elementary aged students to go from 6 to 3. At the high school level, there were some metrics that you had to reference in making that decision. Well, I talked earlier about the fact that the infection rate, the 7-day average, is way down, and the other metric as well has decreased to the point where at this point we can reduce from 6 feet to 3 feet. And I wouldn't recommend doing that except that the number of students who are electing to attend in-person instruction has increased to the point where we have to in order to accommodate them. So there are really two choices. We either go from 6 to 3 feet or we go back to hybrid. And I don't recommend going to hybrid. There's a few weeks left. I recommend going from 6 to 3 feet. I feel comfortable doing that, especially given the fact that the mask mandate indoors remains in effect. One of the requirements in order to move from 6 to 3 feet is that the community has an opportunity to weigh in, and tonight's Board of Education meeting provides that opportunity. And I'll quote directly from the guidance of April 9th. And it basically says, prior to making any change to reduce physical distancing to less than 6 feet between students during academic instruction, decisions must be made with community input. Responsible parties must include opportunities for feedback from parents, community members, teachers, staff, and local departments of health. This meeting must be held before any change to the physical distancing in schools can be made. The Board of Education should know that many of the surrounding districts have gone to 3 feet and have been at 3 feet for months now, since April 9th. We'll be one of the last schools to make that move. And again, it's being necessitated by, thankfully, more and more students electing to attend in-person instruction. Any questions?
Board members, any questions regarding social distancing?
I just have a comment. I think administration just once again, great job keeping our kids in school. And I think the state has just shown themselves once again to be completely incompetent and make your job more difficult. And I appreciate everything you guys have done in spite of that fact. So thanks.
Okay.
I think this is Yorgos. I think it makes sense. I mean, given that we have already set up all the desks based on the 6 feet apart rule, I mean, like trying to rearrange everything for like 2 weeks, it just doesn't make sense.
But maybe I wasn't clear, Yorgos. What I'm recommending is that we move to 3 feet.
Oh, you
Yeah.
do? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in reality, it's not going to be every class. It's going to be a handful of classes where that 3 foot, where we can't maintain 6 feet. But in those instances, to your point, it won't entail a lot of reorganizing classrooms.
So do we have to move desks around and everything else, or?
Just a few classrooms at the high school level, not significant.
All right, makes sense then. I'm good with it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Great, thank you, Jeff. Let's move on to item 6 of tonight's agenda, the principal's report.
Mr. Malone, why don't we start with you?
Good evening, everyone. Fun and exciting time at the elementary school. We're enjoying a lot of time outside, as we have all year, but also seeing the students engaging in a lot of interesting projects and some end of year activities, a lot of great walking field trips. I want to send a big thank you out to the Sag Harbor Historical Society, which is comprised of volunteers from our community, many of whom are actually retirees of the Sag Harbor School District, some of our retired teachers, and they volunteer their time to guide our elementary classes on local history walking trips throughout the community. And that's been a big hit, real highlight over the last month or so. And we're moving into our end of year activities. And I'm happy to say that many of the traditional end of year events are happening. So our 5th grade celebration on the 17th, the students are preparing for that. And then the following week, we have scheduled our field days. We're splitting the field day, the younger students on Monday, the 21st, and then our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders on the 22nd. On Wednesday, the 23rd, we are slated for a 1st through 5th grade beach day down at Long Beach. And Miss Reynoso's been hard at work coordinating things with Southampton Town. We're following all the protocols that, they ask us to abide by, but we're going to be able to have a fun day down at Long Beach. And then we'll close the week out. I do want to just remind our board and definitely our parents that last week we made some adjustments to the school day. So we do have shortened days. We've notified parents about this. I know that can create some hardships for families, but we do appreciate the cooperation because it affords us some very important time at the end of the day to close out this school year, which obviously is going to be an even more extensive closeout than in years past. We have a lot of reorganizing that we need to do. And it's exciting because we're heading into next year. We're looking ahead to September 2021 with a lot of optimism, and we're kind of shifting back to the way things normally are. So parents should just pay attention to those adjustments in the schedule.
Matt, if you could, Mr. Malone, just what is those shortened dates, just for the record, if people are reviewing, if you know, or we could.
You know what, Brian?
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I just,
No,
we had it for the
that's
record.
okay. Basically, that last week we're ending at 12:30, and
Okay.
then the last day is a very short day. But we've sent out an email, and we'll send out a follow-up email to be sure,
Great.
And on the website.
and on the website as well.
Great.
Ms. Carriero.
So the middle high school is winding up to wind down. We are starting, this week is our students are participating participating in final projects and finals in each and every one of their classes. And we also ended in the middle school our Whaler Wars. This past weekend and from Thursday on was our high school musical. If you didn't get a chance to see it, it's being streamed. You can look on the website for information on that. It was fantastic. Kudos to our director, Bethany Della Pola, and the two producers, Mr. Holden and Miss Loopy, for putting on a fantastic show under the circumstances. The AP exams will be finishing up. We have AP Calc and AP Stats this Wednesday and Thursday. And then next week on on June 16th, is the last day of classes for middle and high school students because we have to go into Regents Week from the 17th to the 24th. On June 18th, we're going to have diversity, equity, inclusion training with John Cronapple. Thank you to Ms. Westhoff for setting that up. Our teachers are going to be learning about being culturally responsive and rethinking our systemic ideas and trying to be open-minded to support our learners. On 6/14 to 6/17, so June 14th to June 17th, those are when the middle high school events are happening. So we're excited for that. That's going to be a senior night on that Monday. Academic awards for grades 9 through 11. National Honor Society, we finally get to honor our current seniors because they only got a video last year, and then our juniors that got inducted this year. And then, of course, our 8th grade moving up. The 22nd will be our prom on the back field. Miss Federico has been outstanding in setting that up for our juniors and seniors. And then our final celebration, which will be on Pearson Hill on June 26th, which is graduation. Currently, we have it set up that families are allowed 4 people, but we sent an inventory form to see how many people, guests, families would like up to 8. So we have been out on the front lawn trying to measure things out and hopefully to accommodate everybody, but depending on where we're at, that's where we're going to be. So it's a busy time, but we're excited to celebrate everybody.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Carriero. Are there any board questions for Ms. Carriero?
I have two want to comment, one question. I just want to say that for being in a pandemic, the theater was exactly what you had expected to always be, and they did not miss a beat, and kudos to them. So you're right, Mrs. Karras, it was amazing. And secondly, at graduation, so we're no trucks on the hill, we're seats next to each other, the kids are walking up. Just want to make it clear for everybody to understand that. So
yeah, so the parents and families are going to be sitting in like pods like they were last year for people that had an actual pod. We're not going to make circles this year, but we're going to be socially distance them.
Got it. Great. Sounds amazing. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay. Seeing or hearing none of those, we'll move on to section 7 of the agenda tonight. Is there a motion for consent agenda items 7.2 through 7.24?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion with respect to any of those? Mr. Nichols, I received some correspondence just with respect to item 7.6. If you could clarify, or I see Ms. Buscemi is on the line. If she could just clarify what that is, then we can move forward.
So that was a memorandum of understanding that was drafted by council, district council back in 2019, but it was never presented to the Board of Education for approval. And with the transition in superintendencies and business officials, it just never got done. So it was brought to my attention several months ago. And before bringing it to you for your consideration, I wanted to review it with council and our business administrator. And we've done that over the last couple of months. And it looks to be what was intended back in 2019. So it's really just cleaning up what should have been done then. Ms. Buscemi, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, basically, the MOA was done to incorporate many of the new titles that were changed in civil service. So Suffolk County Civil Service changed many of our clerical association titles into new titles. So what we did was we incorporated all of those new titles into the contract, and the way we were able to do that was through this MOA. So now we have salary schedules associated with all of those new titles.
Okay.
So, oh,
Any board questions for Mr. Nichols or Ms. Buscemi?
I just have two. One is in terms of the change in titles, does that automatically change compensation?
The only change in the compensation would be if someone took a promotion exam and they qualified for a higher title, and then their desk was audited, and their desk was pretty much classified for the higher title. So if we have an employee whose duties change throughout time, and their desk was audited by civil service would say this title now changed to this new title, which was actually a promotion. So anyone who was whose desk was upgraded would receive a different compensation schedule.
And since this was originally drafted to now, has that happened?
Well, the titles, I believe, were changed in 2018. I think the MOA was originally drafted in 2019, and we're finally able to kind of wrap this up and get all the language changed, and we're hoping, to do that now in 2020.
So no one's desk has been audited in between and would be paid more because of that?
Well, the desk would have been audited already when the titles were changed in 2018.
Okay.
Nope, but they didn't receive an upgrade until now.
So this really isn't about, this is something we're required to do?
Yes, so our contract did not match civil service what the actual titles were at all. So we really needed to change that language.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on any of the consent agenda items from the board? Okay, with that, Mary, I'd ask you to please open up the voting.
That's unanimous.
Great. Section 8 of our agenda has no discussion items scheduled for this evening. Section 9, public input number 2. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment directed to the Board of Education? Now would be the time to do so, raising your hand in the chat room. You would have 3 minutes after stating your name.
I just want to say congratulations to the new folks that were hired in our consent agenda. I see at least 2 of them are the attendees in our meeting tonight. So congratulations.
And Brian, I would just like to make a comment regarding 2 people who submitted their intent to retire and from the district. Fausto Hinojosa and his wife, Diana, worked for a number of years in our district and rendered service that was so valuable to our Hispanic community. And their work really, in my opinion, made the transition that students experience smoother. Many students coming from other countries, and Fausto, although he was a TA, often acted as an unofficial social worker, and both him and his wife will be missed, and I just want to thank them for their service.
Thank you very much.
I second that, absolutely.
Mr. Fisher, any hands?
I do not see any.
Okay.
Mr. DeSessa?
Yes.
Hello.
How are you, Ms. Reynoso?
I know there were no committee reports on the agenda, but I do have one thing I'd like to share quickly, if I may.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just want to speak on behalf of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We have begun planning for next school year, and part of that entails a diverse and inclusive book list that's been shared with Pearson Middle High School, the administration and faculty. We're also in the process of researching professional development for next school year, and we may have secured an organization called We the People that we're in the process of scheduling a conversation to see about possibly rolling this out for the fall and what training could look like for our school. The curriculum right now is pre-K to grade 8. So we're seeing how we could offer that to students and faculty. And then the last thing is the student subcommittee has been putting together films of interest to hopefully have in place next school year for the school calendar. And our hope ultimately is to pair that with book readings and then ultimately have these conversations and films viewed again at John Germain Library like we used to do in the past, and hopefully that could be in person. So I was just hoping to share all those
Yeah, it
elements.
sounds like you guys are very busy, so I apologize for not asking if any of the other committees had
That's
have
okay.
anything. So
No
thank you for
problem.
jumping in on that, and I'll make sure on next agenda we list those so that there's an opportunity for any committee people that want to report back. 'Cause I overlooked that this week, so my apologies.
No problem.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mary didn't know. Mary sends out an email. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, with that, is there a motion to convene into a executive session to discuss collective bargaining unit negotiations, contractual matters, and litigation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. For the public watching, if the motion does carry, the board will go into executive session, at the conclusion of which we will come out for the sole purpose of adjourning the public meeting. No action will be taken subsequent to the executive session if the motion should carry. Mary, please open up the voting. And before everyone votes, is there any discussion on that? Does anyone have anything they want to say
No.
before we vote? Okay.
That's unanimous.
Great, thank you. Board members and invited personnel to the executive session. There is a link to that sent from me earlier. I'll see you all there.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Right.
Bye.